This is podcast or live show number 7. Now normally I do these live, but the accommodation I'm staying in just now, the internet isn't the sharpest. So I thought I would just create the podcast, talk to you for an hour, unedited, and just chat with thoughts off the top of my head so that I can keep this series going until I can get to another accommodation that's got a better internet connection. So, episode 7 of the weekly chats, and I've got 3 big topics to cover in today's video. First one, my brokerage account, like where it's at now. I've talked in recent videos about ups and downs, so I'm going to cover that, my stock position. I'm going to talk about a call I got from the NHS this week, share with you a little bit about it. And lastly, I'm going to talk a little bit about, what was the 3 biggies? Talk a little bit about the travel the last couple of days, and then a bunch of other stories in the middle of all of this. So I apologise it's not live, but there's no way the internet would have been stable enough to cover all of this. Now let me just also say before I get started into this, thank you to all of the Patreon members that have signed up. I am about to invoke a small price increase when I hit 100 members. As of today, I'm at 82. If you're interested in learning more about my stock options, how I write things, actual live points when I'm writing new options, when I close options out, when I am thinking about my channel, my YouTube creation, how I make videos, the equipment that I use, all of that is inside the Patreon platform. There are videos on all of these topics now, but also I do a monthly live Zoom call where we have actual members of the Patreon on the platform talking to me directly, so a proper one-to-one or a proper group session. And also I make videos when people have just questions to ask, like how do you write a stock option? I can make a video and all of that. Why do I put it on Patreon? This is already a niche channel, right? Most of my videos get about 2,000 views. When I do these live streams, they get about 1,000. But I make these because I enjoy the conversations. But the deeper thinking into some of these topics, I post them to Patreon. You can sign up for free, but really the main content starts from £3. So for a very small investment, I make dedicated content over there, and it helps sustain my lifestyle a little bit, the travelling, and also just the time that it takes to put into creating those. So thank you to the 82 members that I've got on there already. Link is in the description if you want to sign up. Right, let's talk about my stock options. Let's talk about my shares position. Over the last couple of live streams, I've talked about my brokerage account, which is Interactive Broker, IBKR it's known as. My position on there went from a positive position over the last couple of months to a negative $25,000, and most recently down to a negative $32,000. And I talked on Patreon to my Patreon members, and I've talked on these live streams that this is part and parcel of the roller coaster you're on. I'm not selling any of those stocks that I hold because I still believe in the company's fundamentals. In fact, as the stock prices have came down on the likes of SoFi that I own, I've actually bought a little bit more, but I've also written some options on there which I've made a little bit of money out of. So I went to a negative $32,000 position at one point on my account, meaning the stocks that I've bought were actually underwater. Now, if you're following the news, right, the Iran situation, Trump has obviously put a blockade on the strait and is now selling oil directly to a number of countries. Stock market opened yesterday. Just for context, right, covering this, it's Wednesday the 15th of April, and last night, Tuesday 14th of April, some of my stocks started to recover, and see that negative $32,000 position. It's actually positive $3,000 last night when the market closed. SoFi, which I own, had dropped from around $30 tail end of last year, as low as $14.97 some days ago. Actually closed out last night at about $18.11. I have 2 cash secured puts contracts, which means I have given the intention to buy 200 shares of SoFi closing this Friday. and I did that with an $18 strike price, and I was paid around close to $300 in fees. Now if SoFi stays above $18, I will just keep those fees. However, if SoFi closes below $18, I will be buying 200 shares at $18, just to explain a cash secured put. And I've got money in the account, which is why it's called cash secured. There's money in the account to buy the shares already. It's not on credit, not borrowing money from a brokerage. I have the cash there. That's why it's called a cash secured put. So now that it is above $18, I can actually close that out. Close it out now and take about 3/4 of the fee and hand some of it back, or I can wait till Friday. I'll probably wait till Friday. But it's been quite a ride, and I posted on Patreon last night, negative $32,000 to a positive $3,000 position. This is exactly what I talked about weeks ago. Don't panic. The stocks that I hold are strong companies. There's no reason for me to worry about selling these stocks. The CEO has bought shares of SoFi, their performance has been great, and their next quarterly results come out on the 27th of April. So I'll be looking to see how has the company performed in that time. So that's my stock position, and that's a little bit about some of the options that I've written so far, but I have more than that. I have positions on GameStop, I have positions on a company called Rocket Lab. If you want to know more about the thinking on all of that, it's on Patreon. Right, now, quick deviance on topic here. I've got my new flip-flops on today, Skechers. These are the Arch Fits. These are the ones that I had to buy because I had plantar fasciitis. Am I saying that right? And I had so many comments from people who watched the live stream, me talking about my sore feet, my burning on the bottom of my foot, and my ankle issues from walking about either in barefoot shoes or just barefooted. People in the West are just not used to walking around in bare feet. You end up with tendinitis. But I've got to say, I bought these flip-flops. These were like, I don't know, £15 or something, right? And they've got the arch bit built into them. But I also bought insoles to go inside my trainers, and the pain is gone. The pain is just gone like that. They weren't custom insoles, they were from a company that specialised in insoles. I had my feet scanned in a mall in Malaysia, and the insoles were like £40. They've just made such a difference. My feet feel great. I'm walking about here. We're now in Bali. This is our apartment block in Bali. We're in Kuta Beach. We got here a couple of days ago. More on that in a minute, right? But so, see, to the people that have got like sore ankles, tendinitis, that messaged me, there was so many people in the comments were like, oh, I've got that burning. Richard from Britain to Beyond, I saw him making a video talking about the same topic. And I think his wife, Carrie, was like a physio or something, a physiotherapist. She should know, he should know. But anyway, ankle issues have been resolved. I was out yesterday and did a walk. I think I had 20,000 steps here. There's no gym in this complex, beautiful pool. So instead, I've had to get out and do the kilometres, get the steps in, right, just to kind of keep my fitness levels up. I've got an exercise band. I'm using the exercise band. That's the one that I bought way back out of that big sports shop, Decathlon in Malaysia. That's me finally getting to use it now in the room. Yvonne thinks I'm nuts. I'm in there like doing bicep curls and all sorts of exercises, tying it onto door handles and doing, that's face pulls. You stretch the cable around your face, that's that one, right? So what else came along, right? We did a house sit for 4 days for this Kiwi teacher, super nice woman, looking after her 2 cats. So that was our second house sit in Malaysia. Went really well. The 2 cats were awesome. Bandit and Pirate, super chilled, and her building complex was lovely. Basketball court, that was the court I was running around. But it was a quick 4 days. The time came and went like that. She left us a great review on the platform that we use. It's called House Sitters, or let me confirm, let me look at my phone here, Trusted House Sitters. If you're thinking about travelling, you want to find a way of cutting down costs, and you're a reputable person, you've got a LinkedIn profile or an Airbnb account, you can sign up to this thing, and you can then apply to do house sits. People freak out, like, you're not supposed to be working in other countries, very grey area. Here's what I would say about that. Don't arrive at a customs desk somewhere and tell them you're in the country to work by doing house sitting, and you probably won't have any issues. Book an apartment or book a hotel for a few days before you go and do the house sit. You should avoid any of these issues. It's a grey area. It's a grey area because you're not supposed to be working, and if you define working as looking after somebody's house and a pet, but there's ways to try and avoid these challenges, right? So we did that house sit, and then we went back and stayed at Paxton Suites, where part of Empire City. We'd stayed at Mozaz and Paxton were the two buildings next to each other. We stayed in Paxton in January. The only disappointing thing about that is you have to move into the other building to go to the gym, but it was only a couple of days. I think we stayed 3 nights. It was £40 for the 3 nights. People always ask me, like, how do you get these cheap prices? And I'm like, how do you not see them on booking.com? We just go on, search, and those prices come up. I typed in Paxton and the building came up. Typed in Mozaz, the building came up, and it had prices from, like, that was like £11-12 a night. We booked it. There was no deposit this time we stayed. We arrived, got the apartment and used the swimming pool and had a wander around the mall and a bite to eat. So that all went really smooth. Then we checked out and we've travelled, and now we're in Bali and we're here for a month. First time we've ever been here, so we're both super excited. We're staying in this accommodation which was recommended by Chris on Retire and Go, and I'll do a little review on this on videos down the line pretty soon. But the goal now is a couple of days here, and then we're going to move around the island and stay in some other locations. Ubud we're going to go to, and Samir I think is the name of the other we're going to go to as well. But before we left, I had a chance to have dinner with Neil and Anna, who are viewers of the channel that we'd met in the mall. We went and had dinner at Denise's restaurant, who Yvonne and I had previously done the roast beef dinner review of, and we just got to know her, and she was messaging me telling me her husband had an injury in his foot and ended up with sepsis. So when we arranged to have dinner with Neil and Anna, we said let's go and we'll go to Denise's restaurant. So they got introduced, and Denise was telling me how her husband's doing. We had a really nice dinner and a good evening in the restaurant before we left, and Denise was like, oh, it'd be great to see you before, because I'll never see you again. And I'm like, no, we're coming back to Malaysia. We're not leaving forever. We're just going travelling just now. The plan had been to go to Vietnam, but we just couldn't get the pricing for the apartments. It was coming out at like £700 to £1,000 for a 1 month apartment in Da Nang. Well, it's just way too expensive. So we booked to come here, and it was £300 return. So we're going back to Malaysia in a month's time. £300 return to get here. We've downsized our suitcases. We've only got 1 suitcase now. So that kept the cost down a little bit. Made moving a little bit easier. Right, let me tell you about big story number 2, right? This relates to this. I got a text message like last week from the NHS about me getting an appointment for my kidney stone. And it said on it, Northampton General Hospital, NHS Trust, dear patient, this is an important text message from Northampton General Hospital regarding your urology care. We are reviewing waiting lists and need to inform you of some information. Can you please help us by logging in to this app, right? So I logged into the app, and it asked me, do you still need medical care? And I was like, no. And it said, do you want to discharge yourself? I said, yes, discharge myself, I'm fine now. To very quickly explain, November of 2024, I ended up in hospitals having belly pains, vomiting, everything. And they gave me morphine and didn't know what was wrong and sent me home. Didn't get to see a doctor. I'd been in the hospital for 16 hours and there was no doctor available. Sat in the waiting room of Northampton General. I talked about this on videos. People said I was criticising the NHS. Yeah, I was. It was pretty poor care. People that I talked to have had the same experience. So I was home for a few days and ended up back in the hospital. And this time they sent me for a CT scan, discovered that I had a kidney stone. And that was the diagnosis at that point. I'd need to see the urology department. So that was late November 2024. In February of 2025, I passed the kidney stone, peed it out, but I was still on record to be seen by the urology department. And then they sent me a text message on Saturday to tell me that I was going to have an appointment with Northampton General Hospital. But having waited, what would that be, 17 months for the appointment, they couldn't actually see me in person. They were going to do it via a telephone call. It's right there, so you can see it. It's going to be a telephone call with the urology department after waiting 17 months. And it said on it, if I didn't attend the telephone call, I would be charged £160. So you had to text to reply, and I did, and said, discharge myself. He sent me a text message saying, confirmed that you've discharged yourself. So the appointment was scheduled for Monday. Now Monday, I was in the airport, I was in the lounge with Yvonne having a bite to eat, and the phone rang. No surprise there, right? Of course, I've discharged myself twice, but of course they would go ahead and have the appointment. So this woman comes on the phone. This part blew my mind. She's like, can I speak to John? I'm like, hello. She's like, it's the hospital here, urology department. I said, hey, I've discharged myself. She's like, have you got a couple of minutes to just talk to us? I said, yeah, sure. So I went into a little quiet corner of the airport. I wanted to try and record this with Yvonne's phone, but it was just noisy, right? I couldn't do it. But I said to her, I've just discharged myself. Did you not get the message? And she's like, no. Why have you discharged yourself? And I was like, because it's over, I'm healthy. And she was like, can I ask what happened? And I was like, I nearly died in Kuala Lumpur, fell deeply ill, and turned out had another kidney stone that hadn't been detected on the CT scan from the NHS. And she was like, right, so walk me through it. I'm like, yeah, well, I got rushed in, I was having renal failure, I had to fit an emergency stent, and I had to wait 2 weeks for my body to recover, and I had to go in for surgery. They removed that stent, lasered the stone, fitted another stent, and then 3 days later or 2 days later I got sepsis and went into septic shock and was rushed into A&E. She's like, wow, that must have been very stressful. And I was like, yeah, it was incredibly stressful. I was like, it's cost me £13,000 and a crazy insurance battle that I'm still going through. She's like, well, I'm so sorry, we couldn't have done more for you. We just don't know what happened, why you haven't been seen beforehand. And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, have you got any questions for us? And I was like, yeah, why did it take 17 months to get a telephone appointment? And she said, it's just the waiting time right now. And I'm like, 17 months to see the urology department for a telephone call? So see, everybody that messages me like, oh, you're being too harsh on the NHS. I go to the doctors and I get seen all the time. Like, you might be lucky. You might just have one of those hospitals near you that doesn't have those intense waiting lines. But I've got a pal of mine who'll probably be watching this, Jenny, who's been in and out of hospital the last couple of weeks trying to be seen, and she's sat in wards and not seen nurses and been sent home and then been sent for tests, and then they've given her the wrong tests and asked her to come back and then can't tell her what's going on. And I just think, like, I don't hear from anybody in my near vicinity is having a good experience. And I had already felt quite bitter about how my dad was treated in his last days, being sent from one hospital to another, and then just the piss poor handling of his last days, watching by the bedside at the way the nurses were going on, and I don't hold the NHS in high regard at this point. I didn't have a good experience, my dad didn't have a good experience, my friends and family are not having good experiences. I wish you could just see if you could just opt out, not pay the money and go private, rather than having to be taxed on this and get shit service at the other side of it. I would probably be okay with that. Right, so that was story number 2, right? Now let me flick through a little bit here. So obviously we've got Yvonne's laptop. We've ended up here, right? She can't use it because there's no internet connection here. We have to go to a little bar across the street and get a drink and sit in there and use their internet. That's how I uploaded the first video from Bali, sitting in that bar took about an hour to upload the video. It doesn't work here in the apartment room, which means no YouTube videos, which means we're not streaming anything on Amazon, so it's been quite a quiet couple of days, like not consuming content for a change, giving my brain a little bit of a rest. But Yvonne's got a new laptop. she's trying to download software, trying to download like Microsoft Word and all that, and can't get anything. So it's been quite funny. She's gone from this like, oh, I've got my new laptop, to suddenly being like, I've got my laptop and I can't do anything with it. But we'll move in a few days, and hopefully the next place has the ability. But just seeing the excitement in her face, and we got rid of the box. You know, getting rid of packaging with these kind of things, that goes against everything that I've stood for as a kind of collector and hoarder. Keeping boxes of like iPhones and laptops, we put it in the bin. I videoed it. It's quite stressful for me. I'm not Yvonne, she was just like, in the bin, who cares, new laptop, off she goes. But I'm always thinking about, what happens if it's got to go back? What happens if there's something wrong with it? Too late, box is gone. And then obviously my phone wasn't charging right, and I was trying to clean the little port out inside there. I was getting into it myself, doing all the work, and the cable would go in, but it would be loose. So we took it into the Low Yat Mall. There's tons of booths in there just saying repairs. Stopped by one that didn't look busy, a wee guy, young guy. Gave him the phone, and him and his mate cleaned it out, like a proper cleaned it out, and put the cable in. It worked. It was like £2 or something. So I'm pretty relieved, because I just, like, things have started, we're in this phase now where things have started going wrong, like things are breaking. My electric toothbrush is almost broke, it's rattling like hell, it's like the pin inside it's knackered. I thought my phone was going to be knackered, and that was stressful because my whole life is on this phone. Yvonne's phone also wasn't working with data, turns out that's Revolut. We've come off of the Revolut data package and moved to, can't even remember the name of the company, we looked at a couple of them. Nomad was one, Airalo was another. It's like, begins with an S, it's like Simplify or something. So we got a data package for her, like, we'll just check and see if this works, and it does work. So fortunately we're okay with that now, we'll use it instead. So that means we don't need to change her phone either. So 2 mobile phones saved for right now. Here's a little thing, right? Hopefully that guy's not annoyed getting a shower in the background of my video here. Don't look at that. Look at that. Here's a little thing that I found a little bit weird, right? I was listening to a Chris Williamson podcast the other day. Don't know if you know who he is. It's a bit of a kind of motivational guy. I like his podcast. He used to be on Love Island years ago, and then had a big shift of life. Used to be a club promoter in Newcastle, and then kind of became a bit of like a men's health guru, or not guru, but just an advocator. Does a lot of live talks and things, and I quite enjoy his podcast. He's got a great way of interviewing people. But he had a guy on his podcast the other night, trying to see if I wrote his name down. Don't know if I did. Michael Smoke, Smoak, Michael Smoke. And Michael was talking about his dad passing away recently. I was listening to this on the plane, and related a lot to me and my kind of feelings, because he was like, you know, he'd watched his dad fall ill and didn't really know what was happening. That was very similar to my circumstance, watching my dad over a number of months from kind of Christmas time till May when he passed, getting iller and iller, and trying to do the right thing, spend time with him, talk to him, and he couldn't talk and all that, struggling to talk, swallow food and everything, getting thinner and thinner, going from being like a healthy man 2 walks a day to kind of looking like a prisoner of war at one stage, how thin he was. And Michael was talking about this, talking about his dad passing away and the kind of jolt it gave him in life. And he was talking about this weird experience of when people message because they don't know they've passed away, right? And you see little things, and going through this phase of like, can't talk about your dad. I would talk about my dad in last year's videos, started this channel, and it would choke me up and I would get upset. And now I can talk, like now I'm just talking to you, right? I feel fine about it. I'm like, okay, I've kind of moved beyond that grief phase and now into, it's a bit more of a, does celebration feel like the right word, where you can just kind of celebrate the person now a little bit more, talk about them in a better position. And he was talking about that, so I was really kind of locked in on this podcast, right? If you've been going through grief or anything, I would highly recommend going and listen to this. Michael Smoke. It was just a few days ago, if not a week ago. So went to Spotify, go to Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom, his name of his podcast is. Look for that episode. But there was something in there that Michael mentioned that I just locked right in on, right? Because it was very relevant to me of recent days. And that was about seeing messages about his dad now that he's kind of gone through this phase. and it was my dad's birthday recently, 7th of April, as I've mentioned, 7447. Loved that. Palindrome. Somebody tell me down below. I never remember that word. So I went on my dad's Facebook account, right? Here's why that all happened. Yvonne's been using my dad's iPad, super old. I bought him it, and it's just not been up to scratch, right? It's ancient. It's got like a 16 gigabyte drive, hardly holds any data. I said to Yvonne, we'll get rid of it. We've still got it. We've carried it here because I'm struggling to part with it. It just needs to go in the bin. I had tried to like look up what you can sell these things for. It's like £10. It's old, but I can't quite bring myself to break it and put it in the bin, right? I know people will say donate it away or whatever. Honestly, it's not worth the hassle. So we're replacing Yvonne's new laptop with it. And Yvonne was saying, have you checked everything to make sure everything's off of it, right? Now, my dad's iTunes account, I paid for. Like, get whatever apps you need data, whatever, I'll pay for it. And it's still on my account. So I see things from time to time. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm trying not to get upset. Just after my dad passed away, and my dad and I used to talk through Facebook Messenger all the time. He just loved that, right? He wasn't into WhatsApp and all that, so he would send me messages on it. And after he passed away, I'm going to take a second to say this. I had left a message for him to say that I missed you. Just to leave it in the ether somewhere, right? And then when I had the iPad one day, I was trying to make sure I had the logins for Facebook, so that just in case I had to go into his account, I've no idea why I didn't go into his account, but he had a lot of pictures and things saved in there, right? He was big into photography, and I don't want that to just be lost. So I logged into his Facebook account, I got his password and everything, I logged in, and the first thing I saw was my message to my dad, me reading it back after he passed away, saying, I miss you. See, I can say these things easier now, right? But I'll tell you what, see, when I went in the other day and it was been his birthday, this is the point I wanted to make. See all the messages that were in there from people that don't know he's dead. I find that heartbreaking. People that are like, happy birthday, John, I hope you're having a good one. There was almost none that were like, you're missed or something, from people that knew he was gone. And even then, if those people just scrolled down one tiny bit, there was a post from me saying that it was my dad's funeral and everything, so you would see that he's gone. But isn't that wild that the point of this Michael Smoke post comment in the podcast was, well, after you're gone, the messages still come, the digital life continues, right? And that's something I've always thought about. I've made records, dance music, they're on YouTube, I make these videos. It's like a little log of like your life when you're gone. There'll be a digital footprint of you behind. That's how I think about my music. All of the tracks I've made are on YouTube, they're on Spotify, they're on iTunes. Now maybe they'll get deleted from them, I would hope not, on YouTube. But I've left a digital footprint behind. My dad did the same. He had a channel dedicated to Airdrie Football Club and all that. But seeing those messages from people that don't know somebody's gone, and they're like, happy birthday, and I'm like, I'm reading that, I'm like, you can't just go in there and be like, hi there, he's dead. That's my dark sense of Scottish humour there, right? But imagine you're like that to somebody on Facebook, right? Happy birthday, John. And then somebody called John, same name, responds back. Or if I responded back in my dad's account and was like, I'm dead. That's dark and funny, but you know, it's the reality of it. So I was reading that the other night. Right now, see that guy Michael Smoke? He said a couple of things in the podcast that really resonated with me. He was talking about adversity in those moments, right? So he had built a YouTube channel, it's became like uber popular, right? And I think about this channel, it came out of adversity, my own health issues, my dad dying, losing my job. And in that moment, I took all of that and fed it into this, just talking openly, right? And kind of resonated with people that were struggling. And now I've got this channel and we're traveling, we're doing the things that we said we would do. I often think about the people that were like, calling me out last year saying that this was all BS. One person told me I was just having a midlife crisis and that I'd gone back to work and I just couldn't admit it on the channel, that none of this had worked out the way I'd expected. And I always wonder if that person still watches and is like, shit, he actually, he said he was going to go and he's gone. So many channels talk about it for ages and then nothing really happens, right? We said it and we did it. But he was talking about, the line he used is that adversity is a terrible thing to waste, right? And that resonated with me, because in all of this, it's driven me. The adversity was like going out of my job, and then I turned it into this channel. And all right, I'm not rich out of this, right? I make a little bit of money, and I love making the content. And then I've built Patreon, and I've built a newsletter, and I just love all the creativity out of that. So this doesn't feel like a job. This feels like enjoyment to me, like just putting that stuff out there. And I wrote in my last newsletter, I wonder what my dad would think about all of this. I wonder what he would think. And I got a message from a viewer the other day. I actually want to turn this into a video. It kind of described me as being a bit lucky that I'd been made redundant and that I'd got some inheritance, so I was able to go and do all of this. And they admitted in the message that they were kind of jumping to some conclusions there, because obviously they had distilled my entire 31 years of sales career down into nothing, into just inheritance and redundancy, not the job that went in front of it, or the effort, or the sacrifices, or the choices that we'd made. They were basically saying, well, you've obviously got the money to do all of this, and you talk about it like everybody can do it. And I'm like, well, all of this was derived from choices. I didn't own a house in Northampton. I made a choice not to buy a house. I sold my house in Glasgow and I moved to Northampton to take up a job. Changed my life to do all of that with my wife, to have a job in London and put a 13 odd years into living south of the border, and didn't buy a house. That was a choice. We don't have kids. We never felt that we could afford kids. We made choices there. And then as a result, I invested and I put some money aside. I saved a little bit and I bought stocks and shares, and I've ridden the wild ride of seeing that go up and down. So I made choices there. And I put everything into a sales job, from Halfords through to European sales director. And the person that wrote to me just distilled it all down into redundancy, inheritance, you're lucky, and you talk about all of this like everybody could do it. I don't think I talk about it like everybody can do it. I talk to the people who have saved, who've got money. You might be somebody who is in their late 40s, you own a house, you've got a good job, you've got some savings, you've got kids, but they're at an age now where they're maybe off doing their own life, and you're thinking about doing this. You made choices. We don't have kids, we didn't buy a house, we sold everything, every possession. That person that wrote to me never once touched on the topic of what was it like to sell your life possessions and leave a country with a bag. That wasn't taken into consideration. It was just the topic of making a massive assumption about life, about redundancy. I mean, I had to work the career to get made redundant, to get the money. None of that was included in it. And I suppose that person who wrote to me has a job, but they never considered their position in all of that. Now again, here's what I would say about this, just to tap onto that, right? I see this life as like two ways to live it, right? A bottom up or a top down. Let's talk about the bottom up way first, right? I have shared every single month our cost of living since I left. And the average of all of that for my wife and I is about £1,500. People in the comments will say, that's too expensive. Some people might say, that's significantly less than what I'm living on in the UK. For me, it felt less. We've left and that's what we're living on. So let's take 1,500 quid as a base mark. What do I mean by bottom up? Well, I talked in a video recently about my old colleague Bianca, right? She's a bit entrepreneurial. She earns a little bit of money online. She's got a property rented out in London. She's bringing a bit of income from that. She does this kind of consultancy work online, so she's got clients that she can deal with anywhere. So if you can bring in more than 1,500 quid every month from the bottom up, from zero to above 1,500 quid, you could live like this without hundreds of thousands or savings or redundancy and inheritance and all of that, you could do it like that. It might not last forever, you might only want to do it for a year, but you could do it, right? So I don't think I'm selling a dream here that isn't possible if you have the functionality, the facilities to make that happen. Could you live on 1,500 quid a month here? Yes, we're showing that transparently, we're showing that in videos and what you get for that. You could do it for less, probably not that price. You could do it for more and live way more comfortably than we do. But if you could earn 1,500 quid, you could do that. So that's the bottom up approach, right? Then there's the top down. I'm 48, I speak to people. I met a guy recently, Brian, who was 70, he's worked his whole life. He's got a house in California, he's from Ireland, he's renting the house out, bringing in money, Airbnb, he's got investments, he's got his pension, he's got a financial stability top end that can cover his cost of life. So can he live on 1,500 quid a month and make that money last? Yeah, exactly. That's the top down approach. Now, I have savings that I've invested in over many years. I write stock options, I run this YouTube channel, I do Patreon, I bring in money here and there to try and offset my expenditure so that I can do that top down approach, but without eating into the top down as much as you might if you had nothing else to support you. So there's so many different ways to do it. However, the email from that viewer, if you're watching this, hope you're getting the response from all of this, is that, you know, me trying to make this look easy, there's nothing easy about it. We had to sell all of our life's possessions, leave the country, decide not to go back to work, leave friends and family behind and step off into a new country, new location that we've never been to before. We've never been to Malaysia before, we've never been to Bali or Thailand before, ever. We did all of that this time around, just straight off the bat. So we made a lot of decisions to get there. It's not easy, but it won't be for many people because so many choices and options to do and all of that. Right, that's that part covered. What else have I got going on here that I can talk about? Now, see that podcast I was talking about, right? The guy Michael Smoke. He mentioned in it that he was talking about his dad's ill health, right? And he said a phrase where he said, you can have all the problems in the world until you have a health problem, and then you have one problem in the world. And I just thought, that resonates big time. That just landed with me, because having watched my dad go through his own challenges, then getting here and ended up in hospital for 12 days with a kidney stone and sepsis and everything else, you can feel like you've got all the problems in the world till you have a health problem, and then you have one problem. That was just something that I wanted to talk about. So he'd said about adversity was a terrible thing to waste. I agree. My own felt like adversity, and the people who reach out to me that have started channels or making life changes, people who are just taking a month out of their job or 6 months out on a sabbatical to go travel because they've watched some of this, right? It doesn't need to be sweeping changes like sell everything, leave the country. Listen to that person over there if you can hear that, choking to death, smoking outside their apartment room right now, like what's the Editor's song? Smoking outside the hospital doors, something like that. I always wonder about people that have got coughs like that and still smoke. So he was talking about adversity, talking about that being a terrible thing to waste, and then also saying you can feel that you've got all the problems in the world till you've got a health problem, and then you've got one problem, right? And then and from that, right, I was thinking about this, right, like the whole leaving the country. And I saw a viewer left a comment recently saying that I'd left too soon, that I should have stayed and worked and done this and done that. And I just think you can only make the choices that you make for your best interests. Like, I don't make these videos in this channel to tell you how to do things. I show you what things are like so that you can take little bits of it. Like, I watch Retire and Go and I take a little bit of Chris's info. I watch Britain to Beyond, I take a little bit of that. I watch Daryl Solis and I get a little bit of his info, and I bring it all together to what works for me. Same with the stock options. I watch people like Uncle Bruce that I watched from GameStop way back in 2020 and learn about stock options from him and apply a little bit of that to my life. It's not about trying to take everything that's put in front of you and make it yours. Just take the bits that are relevant, and then go and have your own life adventure. And if that means taking a month out, 6 months out, whatever, figure it out and go and live it. So when I hear from people that have started channels and they're like, oh, I'm enjoying doing this or I'm trying that, I find all of that so motivating and so encouraging. I've seen a few channels recently, especially from people that are in the Patreon group. And then also, like, see, I've been reflecting recently on the selling of things, getting rid of stuff, right? Because the record collection's gone, all of our possessions at home are gone. Now we just live out of this bag. And I got a comment from somebody recently who was like, so is your plan just to live out of a suitcase? And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what our plan is, till that changes, and who knows when that changes. And they were like, oh, that seems a bit extreme. And I'm like, well, the extreme part was having all the stuff in the first place. And I heard a comment from somebody that said, having things isn't fun, getting things is fun. And again, that's one of those comments that I just think, yeah, that's absolutely spot on. Like, you know, you get stuff, you have stuff, but the buzz from all of that for me was always the getting it. You know, I would order things from Amazon and then I would forget I'd even ordered them, and then it would arrive, so I would order it, get the dopamine hit, and then a few days later it would come through the door and I'd be like, oh, what is this? Open it up, oh, that's right, I forgot I'd ordered that. And then see, I've got rid of clothes here that I bought in Malaysia that I've not even worn, because I've been like, I don't even need that, and I'm trying to condense down, and I've gone back to absolute basics. So when I was thinking about, am I going to need a new phone, I was panicking because I thought, oh, I can't handle this, I can't deal with this, I don't want to have to transfer all my data. So when that wee guy fixed it in the mall, I was very grateful for him being able to do that. Right, let me scan back through and see what else I've got. Right, I've covered the stock options, I've covered the NHS. You know, I'll say this, right, see the travelling the last couple of days on flights. I think you can tell a lot from people by how they conduct themselves in an airport. I was watching people, we got to the gate, right, and the gate was split into three, group 1, group 2, group 3, group 1 going on first. We were in group 1 only because we were in like the first 2 rows or 3 rows or something, right? And we did that because it was like £5 to book the seat, and also we try and book them in a row, and then hopefully the other seat doesn't get populated and we end up with, like, I call that like cheap version of like first class, where you end up with a middle seat or something and Yvonne and I can stretch out. It didn't happen, somebody got on the plane, but it did on our last flight, but not this time around. So we're in group 1, group 2 is going next, group 3, right, depending on the rows, it's actually booked by rows, who's booked what seats. And I'm watching people coming into the room, they walk in and they look at it, right, and then I watched a guy and his wife go to the end of the queue and then walk all the way up to the front of the queue to ask if they were getting on the plane or which group was group 1. It's marked with a massive sign like, excuse me, can you tell me what's group 2? And the person was like, that's group 2 there, it will go after group 1. And then he looked at the person that was at the front of the queue and said, are you waiting for group 2? And the person was like, yeah, see that massive line there that goes the whole way down this room, that's the end of it. And he's like, oh, like, just as a side topic here, right, I buy into the whole idea that some people on the planet have an inner monologue and some people don't, right? I have a 24-hour-a-day voice running from the second that I wake up, singing songs, talking to me, asking me questions, like just that narrative, like, what are you going to do about this, John? How are you going to make that video? When are you going to get that done, right? My consciousness just at me all the time. But I've discovered that, now this number is debatable, but either 60% of the planet has that or 40% of the planet has it, depending on what Google report you look at, right? It's a psychology test. And I've seen videos on YouTube of people who say they have no inner monologue and like how they function. There's often a joke about those people that are like NPCs, right? Non-playable characters in video games, you know, the kind of, you're the main character and then the whole main character syndrome. Right, so non-playable character is an NPC. Now, NPCs would be described as people that don't have an inner monologue. Now, here's how I tend to notice those people. See, when you're in the supermarket queue, right, and you're going to buy something, and the person in front of you has got a basket filled, and then they unpack the basket, and the till goes down, and the person's rung everything up, but then they haven't looked for their wallet or where their credit card is, or the right change, and then they start fumbling for it, right? Or the other example of that is, see when you're in the airport and you've got to put a bag in a tray to go through security, and you have to take your shoes and belt off and take your technology things out, and you've done all of that. By the time that you get to the machine, right, you've thought that through, you've looked and went, I take my belt off the second I get into that queue, and I start putting my phone in my bag, I take my watch off and it goes in my bag, I get my passport out, and then I'm like patting myself down before I'm even anywhere near the machine, thinking ahead. And then you see those people that do it right at the machine. They're the people that haven't got the inner monologue, the people who don't pay it the till to the last second. No inner monologue, there's no discussion going on to say, yeah. And once you recognise that, you can see these people a mile away, and it's fascinating to watch. It's like the people who just go through life without a thought about, you know, it's the people that come on the motorway and they'll just move lanes without looking over their shoulder as to whether there's anything in the middle lane or the fast lane. They just pull over, right, because they're like, just living in another world. So inner monologue or no inner monologue. And so sitting in the airport is the ultimate test of all of that, because it puts your brain into action. When have you got to be somewhere? How have you got to get there? You know, what direction is it in? What do I need to take off to go through security? And just watching these people come in and be like, is this queue number 2? Where does the queue start? When there's clearly a massive queue here of people waiting at number 2. That's the one thing about travel that I'm not good at. I am a get straight there, get on with it, get in, get it done, get manoeuvred around. I do all of that kind of stuff, thinking ahead, and the voice is living in my head, like, get this done, John, get that done. And then I see people where I'm just like, there's literally nothing happening. The lights are on, but no one's home, I think is the phrase. Fantastic. Right now, two quick stories, right, to tell you that I heard in a podcast. See, when I was talking about that adversity thing earlier on, right, I heard about this test. It was a laboratory test about not quitting, right, about getting up and feeling motivated. And the reason that came into my mind, right, was I get asked a lot of times, like, what happens when you get bored of this channel? What happens when you get bored of this? And I always think, like, I've just not been that kind of a person. Like, I've always done, like, quite intense sports, like long distance cycling, and I've done football and mixed martial arts, where you go through like adversity in those situations, right? You got to push through barriers. And I read about, or I was listening to a podcast that was talking about this test, and it was about a scientist that was testing how long a rat would swim for before it gave up, right, and died, perished. And what they did was they put rats inside a plastic tub and let it swim until it passed away, right? Now, the first time they did that and the rat passed away, it lasted 15 minutes, right? So 15 minutes worth of effort. And then what they did was they put a new rat, right? These were wild caught rats, put this rat into the same water, but just before the 15 minutes was up, they would pull it out, dry it off, and let it rest, and then put it back in the water to see how long it would continue to swim for before it gave up. And it was about hope, right? It was about the effort that it takes to stay alive. How long could you fight it for, right? Just to see what it would be like in a rat. Now, see when they took the rat out the water, dried it off, let it recover, and then put it back in again, they asked people, how long do you think that rat continued to want to fight for life when it went back in the water? And people guessed like 2 times the amount of times, 3 times the amount of times. You know, did it last for half an hour? Did it last for 45 minutes? It lasted for 60 hours. 60 hours of relentlessly out the water, back in the water, out the water, back in the water. 240 times more effort, just knowing that there might be hope to keep going. And I heard that, and I was like, wow. That's like in those moments where you think you're going to just quit something, right? That's when people just give in. And I get questions from people about their channel and getting views and all that, and I always see these videos that's like, right at the point where you're about to quit is probably the time where you'll get a breakthrough and all of this. And it made me think about, like, did a bike race years ago. It was a 100-mile race around the Cairngorms in Scotland. I'd never done 100 miles before. The longest I'd ever done was 70, and it was relentlessly tough. I was on my own for hours. Started it with a mate. He rode away. He was way fitter than me. And at about the 60-mile point, there was a checkpoint where you could go either way to the finish. One was you were going to do the full 100-mile route, and the other one was like 10 miles to the finish. And there was a little old woman that kept doing checkpoints, like scanning your tag to make sure you were going whichever way, right? She was just a helper, volunteer. And as I was riding up to her, she was doing the scanning, she was shouting, heroes this way and losers this way. Heroes to the 100-mile and this way to the 70-mile finish. And I thought, oh, fucking hell. So I carried on the 100-mile route, which is what I'd signed up for. And minutes after I left that point, I broke down into tears, crying on my bike with my sunglasses on, because I was absolutely broken by how difficult this was. But see, when I finished the event, I'm still talking about it now, right? Years ago I did that, and it was that perseverance and that effort that it took to just keep going. And I think about that a lot. So when I heard that story about the rats and just how much effort that it took, 60 hours of being pulled out and put back in again, just with the belief that you might get saved in a rat's mind, was fascinating. Little study that I had heard. And the second part of that story, right, last one I'm going to finish on, was about identifying a pessimistic mind versus an optimistic mind, the differences in people. And it was a study that was done with a group of people, and they were given a newspaper, right? And in that newspaper, the test was to read and to look at the newspaper itself and identify how many pictures, how many photographs were inside the newspaper. And the person who was being tested, they were told, if you get it right, you do it quickly, you'll win a prize. And now the newspaper had been designed by the company that were doing the test, right? So they had this group of people who they knew had an optimistic mind, and they had this group of people who they knew had a pessimistic mind, to see the differences as to what they would do. Now, see the optimistic group, they completed on average the newspaper test as to how many pictures were in the newspaper in an average of 40 seconds. And see the pessimistic mindset people, they did it in an average of over 2 minutes. And the lesson that was learned from all of this was that, see the newspaper, on page 2 of the newspaper and page 12 of the newspaper, it had a picture that said there are 48 pictures in this newspaper. The answer was there on page 2 and page 12. And see the optimistic people, they opened the paper, saw that, checked it, did a very quick scan, wrote it down and completed it in 40 seconds. And see the pessimistic mindset people, they took over 2 minutes, because even though they read it on page 2 and page 12, they didn't believe that it was true. They felt that it was a trick, and so they counted every single picture to validate it. So the people with the optimistic mind just said, yep, I believe it, let's take a punt. And the people with a pessimistic mind said, nah, that can't be done, that can't be right, and didn't believe it. I thought that was quite fascinating. And the reason that I bring that up is because no matter what I talk about on this channel, no matter the experiences that I share, there will always be those that say, yep, I'm going to give this a go, I could try that. And there'll be those that say, nah, it can't be done, it's easy for you, that's just, yeah, that only applies to you because of this. Fascinating. Right, that's 53 minutes, and I'm going to get a tan just down that section of Majorca where the sun's creeping through. But hopefully that's enough little stories for vlog number 7, and enough shared with you. And maybe in the next one, next Wednesday when I post this, I'll be live again and I'll be able to react to your comments down below. In the meantime, if you've got any questions on all of this, any comments, feedback, let me know down below. If you want to join Patreon before I do the price increase, membership details are down below as well. Starts free, content really builds up from £3 and above. And that's it. See you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching and listening. See you next time.